Nigeria is introducing incentives to attract oil and gas investments as Africa's biggest economy works to ramp up crude output. The measures include substituting signature bonuses, the payments made by companies to governments upon signing contracts, with lump sums for production. Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission Chief Executive Officer Benga Kumalafe said this in an interview. The country is also tackling delays in licensing. Since taking office in May, President Bola Tinubu has initiated sweeping reforms to revive economic growth, and a recovery of the energy sector is vital to achieving the double-digit expansion, a sector that has hitherto dragged on the economy, with the country being unable to meet OPEC plus quotas amid supply disruptions, crude theft, and vandalism. This morning, Joseph Omoba, oil and gas lawyer Olaniwa Ajayi, joins me to talk more about this. Thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us on Business Edge.
Thank you for having me, Lekon.
Now, Africa's biggest economy, that is Nigeria, wants to increase its crude oil production. But then there have been questions around if the country has the capacity to ramp up that particular production that is actually hoping for. Why is that? It's because it has not even been able to meet the OPEC plus production quota allocated to it. So is that capacity there to even start with?
Thank you for that question. And I'd like to look at it from whether we have sufficient reserves. Yes, we do have sufficient reserves. I know that we have over 36.9 billion barrels of crude, in our reserves, which are proven. And to that extent, there is potential capacity. And looking at the growth trajectory, notwithstanding the challenges that the industry has faced in time past, most especially with issues around vandalism and issues around, not knowing what the regulatory framework was. Today, we are moving in the right direction. And to that extent, I would like to opine that we have capacity to ramp up production, increase production. The last time I was here, I also took this view, and really it's becoming clearer by the day that this government is serious about increasing production, irrespective of having not been able to meet the OPEC quota or the OPEC plus share of Nigeria in the past. So it's doable. We have the capacity. I'd like to.
So talking about clarity of purpose from government, Joseph, Nigeria is about introducing incentives to attract oil and gas investments, and we hear of a swapping signature bonuses initiative of governments, which means that instead of large upfront payments, companies will get bigger rewards directly based on how much oil they produce. Now, is that a good way to incentivize production and reduce financial burden on governments?
Excitingly, yes, because signature bonuses connotes that you're making upfront payments, and in practical terms, we've seen oil and gas companies having to lend that money to make payment for signature bonus. So if there is a program or a strategy put in place or policy put in place for licensees or awardees to be able to, first of all, hit the ground running, and upon first oil, being able to then, begin to make payments and deeds, which I believe that's what that strategy or policy is going to entail. I think it's a win-win for both the government and the licensees or awardees, and this is a step in the right direction. I think and I also hold that this is as an outcome of what the Petroleum Industry Act has done, because the Petroleum Industry Act has basically looked at incentivizing production rather than incentivizing investment. And this is being tailored in that direction such that it is anticipated, that when you are able to then make, produce, it is easier for you to begin to make payments understandably based on that arrangement that you are making payments or your signature bonus from the production. So I think it's a big win for any commercially inclined oil and gas company. Yes.
Also, the Nigerian government is said to be working on tackling delays in licensing. That's another issue. You mentioned it in passing earlier. And of course, reducing costs for contractors and addressing bottlenecks on production agreements. So how crucial are these issues, most especially with the federal government now wanting to tackle them? And how will addressing them be enough to prove to potential investors that Nigeria is ready to do business differently?
Thank you, Lekon. For these, I think for any business, it's good to know what the rules of the game are. And also, for ease of doing business, you need to know what the timelines are, for, getting permits, receiving your licenses, or whatsoever it may. This helps companies to be able to plan, also builds up investors' confidence, and also makes the industry attractive. So if you have a system where you do not know when to receive responses from the regulator, you do not know when or how to go about setting applications and obtaining regulatory permits. It defeats the purpose as to timeliness with respect to investment and otherwise. So I know that, again, seeing the trajectory that the regulator has established post PIA, it is very applaudable, and this is what investors look out for. The metrics in determining whether the climate, the investment climate is safe, is where you know how to deal with issues around licensing and how to being able to anticipate when to get, responses from the regulator and all of those. And this makes the industry a better investment destination. And I think that the commission's chair is right on this point.
Yeah, so talking about how viable this industry is, earlier this year, Shell pledged $6 billion of investment in the country's energy sector. And just 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, thereabout, Total Energies also pledged to invest $6 billion in the coming years with focus on offshore oil projects and gas production. Now, we just heard that the Dangote refinery has received the second batch of crude to be refined. And this morning, I read a report about the Port Harcourt refinery that is set to commence operation today. So are these positive signs for the industry in terms of double digits expansion plan of government?
Yes, very correct, Lekon. And these are indicators that investors are beginning to read the body language of government. And to that extent, they are beginning to fall into place. I anticipate that if we continue with this trajectory, as it were, that we will see new investments. Foreign direct investments and other foreign portfolio investment will be attracted. So I am very hopeful about 2024 and the fact that we've gone past the election year and the government has hit the ground running with policies, and the regulators are also, matching up to their responsibility in churning out regulations and also engaging with investors and also pallying to see the best way forward for investors. And all of these are indicators. Seeing the IOCs beginning to come on board to say, okay, we're pledging this amount, we're pledging that amount, and also we have Dangote Refinery on board that's going to even be, feeding in some of Nigerian's crude. All of these are whetting the appetite of investors and showing that as a country, we are going in the right direction. And everything piggybacks on having a good regulation, having a good legislation like we have right now.
This seems okay.
Not perfect.
Joseph,
not perfect.
Okay.
It's a step in the right direction.
Okay, Joseph, this looks pretty good for the oil and gas sector and, of course, for Nigeria's economy. I'm looking into 2024. But then for the ordinary man on the streets, the ordinary Nigerian who usually goes to the pump, to filling stations to purchase fuel, diesel to power their businesses or for transportation, I would always want to ask, what benefits would directly come to him? Why am I saying this? If you're beginning to see investments in the sector, investors are wanting to put their money into the sector, and we're seeing these attractions in all these areas. Of course, revenue will come to the government in the short and the long term. But then for the Nigerian man on the streets, would he benefit from it? And that is because the NNPCL chief, that is Mele Kyari, said that with the resuscitation of the refineries, the ramping up of production, it does not necessarily translate to the possibility of pump price coming down. So what benefit would come to the Nigerian man?
Yes. What I think is, beyond just having the oil and gas industry work, for it to be beneficial to the common man, we need to have a lot of transparency around fiscal responsibility. And this is a different ball game altogether. We need to look at our fiscal and responsibility laws a little bit more and ensure that there is transparency as to how the gains from the oil industry feeds back into the economy, and not just to have the numbers ringing into our ears as to increase production, refining, and all of those. These issues have to be, streamlined into fiscal responsibility. What essentially is the government going to put these monies into, and how will it be of benefit to the general public? For example, if the gains from the oil industry are put into the transportation industry, for example, and we have walking rail systems all across Nigeria, whether you like it or not, that will impact on the price of fuel, because vehicles will begin, there will be a reduction in the use of fuel by vehicles. And it's all a question of demand and supply, irrespective of what the oil prices will be globally. So if we begin to, fine-tune the economy holistically, then the common man would definitely take benefit. So it's not solely a question of what happens upstream, downstream, the oil and gas industry, but as well as the fiscal responsibility part of governance, and how our gains from the oil and gas industry are allocated in the economy.
Okay, now issues of crude oil theft and vandalism still persist, with capital inflows into the industry dropping by about 74% in almost a decade, and that's according to reports, despite several measures by governments to address the perennial causes. So why have these attacks on government installations and other illegal activities along that corridor not stopped? Because whether we like it or not, it will continue to negatively impact production?
Yes, oil theft has been a challenge, and it has to be headlong dealt with. It has to be dealt with headlong, yes. And if you see, one of the challenges for even meeting the OPEC plus quota for Nigeria is tied to vandalism and oil theft. And seriously, technology has to be deployed. We know the government is doing a lot in that direction, but more has to be done, most especially because um, onshore production onshore production is highly impacted by, vandalism. One way to up our game is to also emphasize the modular refineries along the clusters where production happens, and that will in some way also help in reducing oil thefts. Also, community relations have to be increased. I know that the Petroleum Industry Act is also given a very robust framework for community engagement. Now, stakeholders have to take community relations serious and also see how best we can reduce this vandalism. Security, we need to deploy technology, we need to engage community more, and we need to also see how we utilize building modular refineries around the regions where there are clusters of upstream activities, such that it shortens the transportation, corridor. So, and I think that will help in increasing our production.
So talking about increasing production now, President Tinubu pledged to increase oil output currently around 1.4 million barrels per day to 4 million barrels per day by the year 2030. And many analysts say that is impossible and it should just take it a step at a time. Now, so for you, what are the prospects? Because you've talked about the need to build modular refineries, community engagements need to be optimized, policies need to be in the right places. Is it possible when we look at the year 2030?
There's nothing wrong in projecting. And that's the beautiful thing about life. Life is all about projecting and setting goals for yourself.
But then we have to be realistic in projections.
Yes.
Something that is achievable.
Yes. And saying 4 million barrels per day, it is doable. It is doable if the environment becomes more attractive. And, when companies, oil and gas companies, know that this is a terrain that investment will thrive. Yes, once the investors begin to see that we are heading in the right direction, there will definitely be increased production. Apart from oil and gas, apart from oil, we have gas, and all of these culminate. And once we develop our gas market, even domestically, all of these attract investors. And when you are looking for gas, you are as well looking for crude, because very few non-associated gas, very few reserves are non-associated gas reserves. So as you're trying to build gas, you are also wrapping up increasing production of crude. So it's doable. I strongly believe that it's doable. That projection is doable. It now depends on the drive and putting the right mechanics in place to achieve those projections.
Well, you're the second person that will be saying this is doable, looking at the capacity that Nigeria has and the policies and, of course, the environment that should be in place to attract investments and make operations in terms of wrapping up production in the oil sector possible. But then I just want to quickly let you know that a consultant, of course, from OPEC Plus, just about, I think, last month or 2 months ago, when they did their feasibility studies and assessments of the Nigerian terrain, said that Nigeria does not have the capacity. But then we just have to be optimistic and see how the Nigerian government will be able to turn that around and deal with the perennial issues. I understand.
Yes.
I understand. Dealing with the issues will help finalize or actualize the plan that the Nigerian government is hoping for the sector. Joseph Omoba, oil and gas lawyer, Olaniwa JLP, thank you so much for talking to us at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, Nigeria's new approach to attracting oil and gas investment could be a step towards reviving its beleaguered energy sector and boosting the economy. However, success will depend on the effectiveness of implementation and addressing the underlying problems hindering production. And that's where we've been able to place the button this morning on this particular topic. We'll go on a short break. We'll return with international business stories. Don't go away.